Hello, everyone. It is 2 minutes after 5:30, so I propose that we get started. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for this important virtual town hall. My name is Letitia Crawford, and I am the Transit Planning Supervisor for the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation. Um, Me, along with Finn, will be presenting to you all draft recommendations for the spring service change. Our service change process is conducted twice a year and designed to continually assess our transit service. So part of this approach includes engaging with the public and incorporating public feedback into our draft recommendations. But before we begin, going over the proposed service adjustments, I want to take a moment to give a overview of the agenda for this evening's town hall. So first we'll give a brief overview of the spring service change project. Then we'll get into the presentation of the route by route proposed service adjustments. Next, we'll give you more information on how to provide feedback, and then we'll conclude with a question and answer session. But I do want to note that we want to make sure we have enough time to go over all of the recommendations. So if you can please hold your questions to the end, we'll definitely make sure we allot time for them. But do feel free throughout the presentation to drop any questions that you have into the chat, and we'll answer those afterwards. Just to give you all a high-level overview of the spring service change. So we are proposing adjustments to nine of the 24 routes, and we're also looking to introduce 2 new routes. So our goals for the service change is to serve more areas that have little to no bus service. We want to maximize resources by cutting down on excessive layover time and change where some routes go to better connect you to your destinations. So just another quick note, some of these changes that you'll see are a little bit more on the operational side, but still we want to present those to you all. Just a brief overview of the timeline. So we actually conducted a fall service change, and we implemented those changes in December 4th, 2023. Then between January and February of this year, we began our spring service change project. And that is comprised of analyzing data to come up with draft recommendations for route changes. In March, we've been conducting a series of public outreach events, including this virtual town hall, and we're looking to wrap up our outreach by April 1st. And the feedback that we get from our public outreach, we want to use to help inform the final recommendations, which we're looking to finalize in April. And then mid to late May, we're looking to actually implement the spring service change.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to go through route by route and discuss all of the proposals that we are considering. I do really want to stress, we really are so grateful to have received so much feedback about these proposed changes so far, and we look forward to hearing a lot more from you at this town hall and at the other events that we're doing over the course of the rest of the week. These are all changes that are not set in stone, and so your feedback is really important for us to understand the needs of the people who actually ride the bus service. So I'm going to go route by route and discuss some of these proposals, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So we'll start with route 11 in Greenbelt. This is a route that we would reduce the frequency of from its current every 30 minutes to every 45 minutes. The goal of this change would be to reduce some of the excessive layover time that exists on this route and allow us to redistribute those resources to parts of the county that don't have as much bus service. I am aware, and it's certainly something that we have heard from a lot of you about the concerns with the sort of simultaneous potential proposal from MetroBus to reduce service on the G12. We are working very closely with Metro in the course of the service change. Right now, Metro is working to not have to reduce service on that route on the G12. We certainly would reassess needs if Metro determines that it is actually going to reduce service. But at this time, we believe that the G12 will continue to maintain the level of service that it has. And so we worked with that consideration in mind here. Move on to Route 15X. This route is a rush hour route that links Greenbelt and New Carrollton metro stations with the Goddard Space Flight Center. This is the route as it looks now, and we would slightly reconfigure the stops on this route. So coming out of New Carrollton Station, it would run down Harkins Road instead of 85th Avenue. We would add 2 stops on the southern half of the route and get rid of a very low ridership route at Braybrook Drive. This is to allow us to better distribute sort of service across the entirety of the route. Right now, the stops are concentrated more in the northern half of the route. Route 21X, I'm only showing the proposed version here because you can't quite tell the difference in the existing and the proposed just by looking at the map. But we would propose to change the circulation of this routing so that it serves the Community College and the MVA/Kettering Plaza only once per round trip. So right now, Route 21X circles around PGCC, it goes up and it serves the MVA, and then it comes right back down and serves the Community College again. And we would propose that after stopping at the MVA, it would continue back to downtown Largo Metro Station. We would also add a stop on McCormick Drive at the Wayne Curry Building. That's a spot that we've heard from a lot of customers that they would benefit from that additional service to that stop. And the bus already passes that route, or excuse me, the route already passes that stop. Next up is Route 28 in Largo and Woodmore Town Center area. There's a fair number of changes to this routing. So I'll flip back just a couple of times so you can compare. Of course, in red dashed lines here, you can see the parts of the existing routing of the 28 that would no longer see service under this reconfiguration. Right now, this is a very confusing route for customers. It doubles back on itself a number of times in the course of its round trip. And it sees very low ridership along Campus Way North. And so in order to offer a more direct routing for customers along this route to be able to get to Woodmore Town Center in a less circuitous fashion, we're proposing this alignment change here. Those low ridership stops on Campus Way North would lose service. Every other stop here would be covered either by the existing MetroBus L12 or by new Route 29 that the county would offer, which I'll talk about in a moment. That new route would serve the Jericho residences that currently get bus service on the 28. So this is that new route that I just mentioned, and it would connect Landover and downtown Largo metro stations, serving the neighborhoods of Dodge Park, Palmer Park, and Brightseat. In particular, Dodge Park and 75th Avenue in Landover do not have any transit service whatsoever right now. So very important for us to serve that part of the county. This would offer sort of a new connection between the Orange Line and the Blue Silver Line corridor. Since this is a new route, we are interested in running it right now just during rush hours as a way to better gauge the needs of riders on this route. We certainly would hope to be able to scale up service on this route over time. But again, given that this is a resource neutral change, we're not anticipating more than a 1% increase in the total number of revenue hours that the county would offer bus service with this change. We're looking just to offer it during those peak periods, during those rush hour periods, as we get started with this route. Next up is Route 30. Route 30 is in the southern part of the county, and it currently links Branch Avenue Metro Station with the MedStar at the Southern Maryland Hospital Center. And this route would be reconfigured north of Camp Springs. So a bus on Route 30 heading north from Camp Springs, instead of going to Branch Avenue, would go up to the Marlow Heights Shopping Center, the Iverson Mall, and Suitland Metro Station. So this means that this route would still have a connection to the Green Line. And we know that many people ride Route 30 just to get between Branch Avenue and Camp Springs. So that connection would no longer exist on this route. It would exist on our proposed changes to Route 35, which I'll mention in a moment. But it's important for us to offer better service in the Hillcrest Heights, Silver Hill area of the county. The county does not run a lot of bus service here right now. We know there is a lot of demand to get from the Suitland area down to the hospital center. This is currently Route 35. It connects Southern Avenue Metro Station, National Harbor, Phelps Corner, Paget's Corner, and Camp Springs. As you can tell, perhaps just by looking at it, it's a particularly unwieldy route. It's quite long. It has a number of deviations. We wanted to cut down on some of those deviations and just make this a more useful route for all customers. So this is what we're proposing Route 35 looks like. It would no longer serve Southern Avenue Station. That's a very well-served corridor, the Southern Avenue corridor, down past Eastover Shopping Center and to Oxon Hill. There are a number of other transit options there. What we did instead was extend the route in the north and the east to Branch Avenue. So again, that would cover that portion of Route 30 that we would be taking off of Route 30. The stops on Bach Road also currently just do not see that high a volume of ridership, but they would still, customers in this segment would still be served by Metrobus Route W14. One quirk of the current routing of Route 35 is that it only serves National Harbor on southbound trips, so essentially on trips leaving Southern Avenue, but trips heading towards Southern Avenue do not go to National Harbor. We know that's very confusing for customers, and of course, it's just a less beneficial service. It's one thing to be dropped off in National Harbor, but then you can't get out by taking the same route. So here, customers would see, bi-directional service to National Harbor, since that's where the route would lay over. This route would also, the hours of operation would be extended until 8:00 p.m., which matches the current Route 30 hours. Next up is Route 36. This route connects the Clinton Park and Ride with the Brandywine Shopping Center. Currently, this route runs every 45 minutes. We would propose extending this route north from Clinton up to the Branch Avenue Metro and cutting back the frequency from every 45 minutes to every 60 minutes. In all cases, cutting back frequency is not something we are looking to do, but we do think this provides an overall shorter travel time, since so many people on the 36 ride it to Clinton just to transfer to another bus, whether that's on the bus or on Metrobus, to then further connect to the Metro rail system. And that journey from Brandywine just to get to the last stop on the Green Line is quite long, especially when you have to transfer. Of course, if there's any sort of issue where a bus is delayed, that transfer can really add a lot of time to the overall journey. So we're hoping that by extending this route, this provides a much better provision of transit service in the southern part of the county that is very disconnected from the greater regional transit system. Route 37, also in sort of the same general vicinity in the county, currently connects Southern Avenue, Oxon Hill, and then over to Camp Springs. We would propose a slight change in the routing on this route to run along Oxon Hill Road, serve the Oxon Hill Park and Ride, and most importantly, to serve the Wilson Towers residential complex in both directions. This is another quirk of this route, just like the Route 35 that I mentioned earlier. Route 37 currently only serves Wilson Towers in one direction, which again is not ideal service for the many customers who lean on the bus to get to and from their home. So this route would be able to serve Wilson Towers in both directions, as well as offer some new service up and down Oxon Hill Road and into the Park and Ride at Oxon Hill, which is a major transit transfer point. In order to accommodate this in a revenue neutral way, in an hours neutral way, we would reduce the frequency on this route from every 30 minutes to every 40 minutes in the PM period. We think that that is still enough to accommodate the demand in this area. Next up is Route 53. This route is a circulator through Upper Marlboro and links the Department of Corrections with sort of the downtown, the core of Upper Marlboro, the courthouse, and then over to the residential community of Marlboro Meadows. This is a route that we would propose sort of two potential alignment changes on. One is at that eastern end. Right now, there's a very unsafe turnaround for Route 53, and so we would propose having a loop on Holloway North, which would remove two stop pairs on Village Drive West, but would allow for safer operations of transit vehicles in this community. The other potential change is that some trips of Route 53 would serve Henry Wise Junior High School in order to sync up with school pickup and drop-off times. This is still pending some coordination with the high school. So again, still very much as something that is not set in stone. But the county is in search of ways to better serve the school community that's over here. And then finally, this is the second of two new routes that the county is interested in running as part of the service change. It would link Greenbelt Metro with Laurel. And heading north from Greenbelt, it would serve Beltsville, Vansville, the Muirkirk Mark Station, Conti Road, South Laurel Park and Ride, the Laurel Mark Station, and then Laurel Town Center. This route would operate hourly during rush hours only. Again, this is a route that since this is a brand new route, we're interested in studying it a little bit to gauge the needs of customers in this area. Right now, the county does not operate bus service in Laurel. There are other options in Laurel, but there is no TheBus service in Laurel. We know there's some very strong demand, and in particular, Conti Road is a place that we believe is underserved by current transit options. So those are the route by route changes. I do really want to emphasize that your feedback matters. We've already heard from so many people, and that really, really is valuable. That does not it's really not something that we take lightly to implement a service change. And so we've heard strong statements of support for some of these changes, strong statements of concern. That's really valuable. We have already read almost every comment we have received, and certainly will plan to do so by the time the comment period closes. None of these service changes are set in stone. We're still evaluating each and every one. It's important for the county to hear feedback from folks who live, work, and otherwise visit Prince George's County to better understand the needs of people who use the bus. We have held two events already. I believe I met some of you at Greenbelt Metro last week, and I may have met some of you at Branch Avenue Metro. last week as well. We are planning to hold 2 more pop-up events this week. So I'll look for you tomorrow at the South Laurel Park and Ride and on Wednesday at downtown Largo Metro Station. Both events run from 3:30 to 5:30. And you certainly are welcome to come then and learn more information. The information will be very similar to what you've already heard this evening, but we certainly, welcome all opportunities to interface with customers. As noted a few times, please share your feedback by April 1st. You can share your feedback in any number of ways. Certainly leaving comments in this virtual town hall is welcome. Coming to any of these pop-up events and sharing your feedback so that we can write it down on a paper survey is another way. Probably the simplest way is to go to the website where I presume you learned about this town hall. And if you select any route at the top menu, and then you click that route, scroll past the map and description of changes, you will see a survey. You can comment on as many or as few routes as you like. Certainly don't feel that because you commented on one route, you should not go take the survey on the other route page. So you're welcome to fill out the survey, once per route that impacts you. So that really is perhaps, again, the simplest way to leave changes, or excuse me, to leave comments about this service change. With that, I believe I've gone through everything, and so I would like to take this time to answer any questions that we have. I do see one question has been left in the chat right now, and certainly, feel free to raise your hand or type out a question in the chat. I'm going to take a moment just to, this is a little bit of I see two longer questions that have been dropped in the chat. So if you'll give me a moment both to process both of those questions, and I would be happy to give my attempt at answering. All right, so the first question I'm seeing here is about the overlap of the L12 with the proposed 29, as well as the anticipated opening of the county's new Health and Human Services headquarters at Hampton Park Boulevard. Could 28 service be adjusted to ensure that all of those facilities, Department of Social Services, Sports and Learning Complex, could all be accessed on the same Central County circulator route? That's a great question. This is a route that has been planned in collaboration with Metro, and so it is, the L12 is a relatively new route of Metro that sort of spun out from its former A12, and so Route 29 was seen as sort of an opportunity to be a sort of a local feeder route to that higher frequency service. I know that the county is definitely interested in serving that new Health and Human Services headquarters building. It's a lot of H's. At the time when it does open, it's not something that is currently slated for a future service, for an imminent service change, but there has been longer term planning to look at some routes that would go there. But I definitely want to take a moment, maybe offline, to review some of the sort of the nuances of this question. So I appreciate that feedback, and we'll definitely take a closer look at sort of how all those different nodes could be linked. But yeah, do know that the 29 was sort of seen as a sort of a companion feeder route to the L12. The next question I see is about Route 15X. Is there a plan to increase the reliability of the route in the PM loop and to provide later service after 6 p.m.? Noting that real-time live bus tracking is often not available. You're definitely not the first person to share this concern with us. We did receive a number. We certainly have already received a number of comments about the reliability of the 15X. So that's something we're taking a closer look at in terms of the actual run times. I believe it has specifically been pointed out to us that the PM is not as reliable as the AM. So we'll want to take a look at what's causing that delay in the PM. There's not currently a plan to offer service later than 6 p.m. But certainly, as noted, if that's noted in your comment and that's noted in other people's comments, that will be a theme that we will bring back and discuss with the county when we talk about finalizing which of these changes we'd like to move forward with. So no explicit plans right now, but if there is that demand, we can take a closer look at that. Next question, also about the 15X and the specific stop at Goddard. It was my understanding that this stop had been changed to better serve customers, but if that's based on this question, it sounds like perhaps that's not the case. So I will certainly take this back to the team to ensure that the 15X is adequately serving people. Obviously the core purpose of that route is to connect people to Goddard. So if the stop is not actually directly helping employees, then that's absolutely something we want to fix. All right, and another comment sort of in support of more service on the 15X, not just in rush hour, and potentially a few more stops if it meant more service on that route. Thank you for that comment. All right, 2 questions. How are we addressing people who don't pay, and would you consider having the 11 run its usual times during peak periods of travel? I'll answer the second question first. We definitely are open to any sort of any variations on the proposal that we've shared, including continuing to run the 11 at its existing frequency of 30 minutes. Definitely, we're aware that the potential to drop the frequency of the 11 breaks its synchronization with the G12. Of course, right now they during peak periods they each run every 30 minutes. The G12 on the 0 and 30, and the 11 on the 15 and 45. So absolutely, I think that this is a concern of ours to ensure that the full totality of service at Greenbelt, not just the bus service, is benefiting customers. So that is something that we are considering, whether to maintain that level of service in the peak period, or again potentially throughout the day. I can't actually speak to concerns about ensuring customers are paying fares. I'm not sure if there's someone from the county who would like to speak to that, a little bit outside of the work that I'm doing, but I'll give folks from the county the opportunity to chime in response to that.
Hello, everyone. And this is Letitia again, but I don't know if we're actually covering that as far as the spring service change, but that is something that we will take back to leadership to discuss, because I suspect it's not just an issue with Route 11. So we'll definitely take that concern back to leadership.
Great. And I realize I've just been going down the comment list, but Aileen, I see that you've had your hand raised for a second, so I've allowed you to unmute yourself if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question aloud.
Yes, are you able to hear me?
I am, yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. A comment and then a couple of questions. One is, I think that having the email coming out as Foursquare might confuse people. They may not know what this is about, so it might be more helpful to have it be clearer in terms of the subject line when the response is provided back for people to chime into the calls. I want to address questions around Greenbelt, and I'm going to merge questions around city and the county. And I realize they're separate, but they're also together because, as you mentioned, Route 1 and G12. You mentioned that there is going to be a look back to see if the G12 can be maintained. But the reality is, as people have mentioned, with the county buses only running till 6 o'clock, they are not serving the needs of the population. And so the metro buses are at least attempting to be correlated with when the metro trains are coming in, so that you can get off the metro and get on the bus. And that's what's needed. With the B30 bus being removed and the possibility of the G12 bus, and now having the R11 being looked at to have less service, it's just really shocking to me and others who may not be on this call that Greenbelt is being looked at in this way, particularly with the FBI coming in. One would think that one would want to have more service, given that we're going to have an onslaught of humanity, and also just in terms of those of us who are bike riders and avid users of public transportation, to want to encourage our use and not to discourage the use by making it so very difficult for us to get around, particularly at night. So I wanted to get that information in. I heard a comment about fare evasion, and of course this goes way beyond any one route, and it goes far beyond county. But the question in my mind is whether or not monies and resources should be put into the illusion of there being the payment of fares, when it's so obvious that with the passing of time, there's no need to pay a fare either on Metro or on any of the buses, because there is no enforcement at all. So maybe we should drop the illusion and just have it pay what you choose. And I don't mean that in as facetious a way as it sounds, because there are other municipalities that are moving in that direction, recognizing that the cost of pretending to have payment costs more than actually changing the whole system. And so I just put that forward as an option, because Metro putting together all these fancy fare gates and jumping over them is as easy as pie and is being done routinely. So I just think we should look at other ways to have revenue being generated instead of putting money into things that are not working. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those comments, for sharing those. First of all, I apologize on the email front. I was under the impression that we had changed the way that those emails went out. So I certainly apologize if you or anyone else was confused about the reminder email for this event. We do, as I believe I mentioned in the chat earlier, we are planning to post this meeting to the Spring Service Change website by tomorrow. So it will be accessible to anyone who, for any reason, was unable to make it. Your next comment, I think in general was about the Route 11 and sort of the decline in service. You mentioned the arrival of the FBI headquarters shortly, and and just in general that we should be encouraging more transit service in Greenbelt. And I hear that, and I really want to emphasize the county is taking these concerns seriously about the possible decline in service. I will note that on a sort of a longer term planning front, like the FBI headquarters, that is something that the county is tracking in its sort of midterm and long-term planning processes. The reality of this spring service change is to look at the best way to stretch existing resources as far as they can go right now. And right now, the county does not have the ability to expand its service. And so one option to try to look at ways to, to provide service in all of the places that the county would like to do so, was to consider whether the 11 had the means to drop in frequency from 30 to 45 minutes. So we will continue to study to see whether that really is the best way, best course of action moving forward. But certainly in terms of those longer term prospects of more and more, like employees coming to Greenbelt, that is something that the county is planning for on a longer term basis. Again, I really cannot speak to the question of fares. It's beyond the work that I do with the county, but certainly those we've logged those comments, and I see some people supporting it as well in the chat, and that's something that the county team can take up with its leadership. But those sentiments are noted. Thank you. I'm going to go back down the list of questions in the chat. I see that. Let's see. The next question I think we didn't answer was about will there be any improvements to the state of like live updates for bus status to be more accurate? I'm wondering if there's anyone from the county team who might be able to speak to real-time tracking of buses. Is that something that we might be able to address on this call? If not, we certainly can follow up with an answer to that. All right, I'm gonna pass over this one for right now. I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that specific question, but I'll see if maybe there's anyone else from the county who's able to chime in before the end of the call and get you an answer to that. And I sort of just acknowledging the continued comments about the usefulness of Route 11, not only in peak hours, but throughout the day. That's very helpful comment. Thank you. And then finally a comment, can Route 11 be extended a bit to handle the excess layover time? I appreciate that comment. That is a sort of a fair, different solution to trying to solve that layover question. It's something that we certainly can look at further. We did look to see whether that could be done, and did not sort of alight on an appropriate change to the alignment there. But I see a suggestion from you coming in here about modifying the 16 to cover part of the I'll read this more when we get out of this meeting, but to modify the 16 basically, or to change the 11 and then offset some of the frequency issues. So these are all fantastic comments. Truly, I appreciate these suggestions, and we can go in and to take a closer look at the map, at the travel flow demands, at how that would impact the routings of both routes. I do want to point out that even routes that are not in this presentation, that are not slated for a service change, we may actually find a need to modify them based on a suggestion such as this one. So that certainly is still a possibility that we could incorporate. Thank you. I'm wondering if anyone has any other questions. I believe I've made it through the chat. I apologize if I skipped over your question. If I have, please feel free just to paste it in the chat again. And I see the Q&A. Aileen, I apologize for missing your hand raised before, but seems like we've got that there. So yeah, I would love to see if there are any other questions. I certainly, I really appreciate some of these very specific suggestions about routing changes that might benefit sort of the overall route. So those are welcome, and we are making a note of every single comment that has come in this chat, and we'll review them with the full team. We will I guess one maybe theme I didn't touch on is just in terms of communicating changes. We will plan to communicate the final service change on the county's website in mid to late April, ideally a full month before the service change takes effect. We want to make sure people have enough time to understand all of those changes. We also will put up signs on the buses themselves at bus stops in as many places as we think would be useful to communicate those changes. But we would, excuse me, one additional method there is including sort of an alert in Google, in Google Maps and in Transit app. I note that someone mentions that they use Move It, so we can add that to the list of apps that we provide an in-app notification for. But including it in apps is a useful way to meet people where they are, to communicate changes. We certainly welcome any other suggestions that you think would be helpful in notifying customers and other folks throughout the county about these changes. Seeing no further questions right now. Oh, I see maybe one further question being typed, but I will leave you with the URL to the Spring Service Change website. That is again the place where you should leave your comments. I really appreciate everything we've heard so far. All these very thoughtful comments in the chat this evening. Thank you so much. This was very helpful for us. We look forward to reading all the rest of the comments we receive over the course of the next week and that we receive in person at our events. So if you're in the vicinity of Laurel or Largo, please feel free to swing by or to tell your friends, family, coworkers about it. We'll be sharing all the same information you heard now. So you've gotten the full complete version now, but feel free to tell other folks. But we are looking forward to evaluating all the feedback we get and sharing the finalized service change with you in April and implementing it in May. So I think with that, I will wrap up this meeting, but thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for your feedback. And I look forward to seeing you on the bus soon. Thank you. Have a great evening.